As somebody who is a huge fan of both Invincible and The Boys because of how realistic they make kind of like the whole superhero theme, today I wanted to react to this video by D Extra, why Invincible is the most realistic superhero ever. And again, as somebody who really enjoys this type of thing, I thought it would make for an interesting video for today. Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. If you are new here, my name is Kyle. I am your guy with too many YouTube channels. Please go show the creators some love in the pinned comment description down below. Let's get started on this video.
Superheroes, we all know them. Muscular, tight, some of them wearing their undies on the outside. We all know what superheroes are, and I'm sure the MCU has beat the concept of it into our skulls whether we like it or not.
Yeah, and hey, you know what's crazy is the MCU after Superman, man. After Superman, the MCU might have some solid competition, but they've had competition for a while with both, I would say, Invincible and The Boys, but still, like, they obviously don't make the same amount of money.
But even still, superheroes are seen as the highest form of fiction, something that just can't be real, something that just can't make sense. And it's the reason why fascinating it as a kid was seen as weird or nerdy at the time.
Isn't that crazy how times change, too? And my dad used to tell me, like, if somebody was into comics, like when he was first growing up, people would like start beating the crap out of other people and they were like the nerdiest people of all time. When I was growing up, it was still like a loser thing, and then all of a sudden the Avengers movie comes out and all these NPCs kind of just flip switch. Wild.
Superhero media has tried bringing this concept into realism, telling the story of a realistic world if superheroes existed. Many film industries have tackled it, but for me, there's no show that does it better than
I like that touch, to be honest with you. But yeah, again, why I love both The Boys and Invincible is because it's kind of like a realistic take if all of this was true. I love The Boys because the political side of it, like for example, like everything going on with Gen V and all that, Compound V. So I just finished watching Gen V. That would absolutely be hidden. The government would try to make a disease that could get control over them. That type of stuff. That's why I really like that. But Invincible, like, kind of takes it to a new level and really shows the kind of destruction that these superheroes bring. And again, I know that there's aliens and everything. I mean, you could argue that aliens exist, but you get my point. It's just, it's the best at what they do.
Oh, come on, you saw that one coming. I want to explain this in a way it makes sense. Realism, especially to superheroes, is looking at everything a superhero is, what they stand for, and viewing it through the lens of our own world. What would happen if they existed in this so-called world we live in? How would it be? Realism in this sense is saying how would humans react if we knew that just by living our lives or enjoying the beach, someone could be flying at freakishly high speed.
Yeah, see, that's exactly what I'm talking about right here. This is what, oh my goodness, hello. Sorry, I didn't realize my puppy came downstairs to join us today. Who's such a good girl? Who's a good girl? We just, I took her for a really big swim. She looks like a little rat sometimes like that. You good girl. Daddy's got to keep working, okay? Daddy's got to keep working. You good girl, eh? You good girl. Sorry about that, everybody. We got to continue on to the video. But this is exactly what I'm talking about, because what they don't show is this type of thing would actually happen. People getting torn apart, like The Boys at the beginning. Like, whoever actually thought to make that and turn into a show like A-Train kind of just running straight through Huey's girlfriend, that type of stuff, that happens. And I love that shows are touching on this.
Ramos, how do we remedy this? How would humans act or behave living such a life? Superheroes are here to stay, and I frankly don't see it going anywhere anytime soon.
Oh no, people always talk about the genre dying off. I don't think it's going to die off. Like, people talk about Marvel fatigue, superhero fatigue. I just think it's a bad movie fatigue. Like, Thunderbolts was great, Superman was great, and hopefully Fantastic Four is great. I'm recording this a couple days before it launches.
Even if they have to reboot them as many times as possible to keep them relevant. And through all this, there have been very interesting takes on them. Some poking fun at the superhero tropes or trying to ground them in a realistic light. And that's exactly what we are tackling in this video. When it comes to a realistic take on superheroes, there's always two different medias that always comes to mind for me.
And what I've been looking for a way to push this in, but touching on Marvel again, Civil War touched on it, not bad. It wasn't bad, but then, like, you have the other Avengers movies where they drop, like, an entire piece of land onto a city and just, everything's okay.
It's the DCU and The Boys. Two shows that claims to be about superheroes but not entirely about superheroes. The DCU, especially under Zack Snyder's involvement with it, had a very different take on superheroes we knew and loved. Superheroes were dark, gritty, loved to monologue and brood a lot. It's telling the story of gods among.
Now, I mean, that's actually a good way to put it, telling a story of gods among us, but I'm not overly familiar with all DC's projects. I haven't necessarily been too big of a fan of everything that I've seen, so I'm not caught up on all of the movies.
Which was seen heavily especially from the Man of Steel and the Batman v Superman movies. How would the world react if there's an alien walking amongst us with the powers to end life on Earth or is provoked to do so? As far as realism seems to go, the DCU or Zack Snyder's take on it was just being dark, nothing more or less. And the boys.
Yeah, a lot of people were talking about like the Snyder edgy, like the edgelords people call it, right? But again, I'm only familiar with what I've seen from what Snyder had to do. But the boys, man, I loved what the boys had to their take on how things would actually work if superheroes were real. Like more like from a government standpoint. Again, I was very, very interested in like the stuff that Vought was doing. That would be accurate. Of course, they take things to the next level. But then again, they're super beings. Maybe they would take things to that next level.
Oh boy. Now this show is the one. Not only does it poke fun at superheroes in general, but also tries to give a realistic take on it. And let's just say it takes it way too far. Long story short, it tells the story of if superheroes existed specifically in a world as corrupt and crazy as ours, ruled by publicity, media propaganda, and if ego-infested individuals had superpowers.
But that's exactly true. And that's what would happen to a bunch of people if... And how many times have we seen it in general with just regular pop stars? All of a sudden, somebody gets a bunch of fame and they end up going crazy. They end up getting very egotistical, self-absorbed. I wouldn't be shocked if people turned out like Homelander.
What would the world be like? How would these superheroes interact with this version of a world where being a superhero is marketable to its extreme? And also, sadly, that is also the problem with the boys. Everything is too extreme and overly exaggerated. Even if it tries to be realistic and sets itself in a specific part of a world, it just takes things way too far.
I think they take things way too far when it comes to all the gross stuff, but you got to think about it too. If these are actual super beings, and I don't think it's completely out of the realm of possibility at all if these people are like, that elevated from the average man for them to go as crazy as they're going with the boys. But I do think they take like things like the sexual scenes way too far. But then again, it might be true.
Even though I watch this show and I also enjoy it, I find it a bit disturbing, which is fine. But that's all it tries to shove in our faces: shock value and plenty of gore and stupid moments. So what exactly does Invincible do differently that I picture it a more realistic take on superheroes than many others?
I think it's as realistic as you can get, to be honest with you. It's very, very balanced compared to the boys.
I think it's because it takes the best and worst qualities of superheroes and combines them to create something better. Mark Grayson wanted to be a superhero because he lives in a world where superheroes are everything, and on top of that, his father is freaking Superman. And when you watch this show, you see, as this is just a normal cliche of superheroes just told in a slightly terrible animation. But when it turns from this to this.
Oh my god, yeah, okay. I was freaking out for a second because I was afraid that I was going to see a big Invincible spoiler. I've been working so hard to not watch any Invincible spoilers. I thought that's what we were about to get.
It was an everyday take on superheroes. Most will just have this resolved in the more out-of-pocket way to keep the tension longer, but Invincible uses this as a construct for other characters to matter. Debbie investigating Nolan's reveal to Mark, and the aftermath. All that stemming from this one scene where Nolan...
And it takes the brutality to it too, where the boys would kind of just like, they would make jokes and they would probably do something a little sexual, or Butcher would be like, oh, let me tickle your balls or something like that, right? Invincible's just complete brutality when it comes to those scenes.
1v7's the Guardians of the Globe. Now, I'm not here to gloat or glaze the entire narrative weight of this show, but emphasize that what this show does is proving that actions have consequences that can and will ruin everything in the long run. Again, not saying superhero takes from other forms of media don't tackle this concept in their own unique way, but
yeah, but it's completely different when you have a show as well written as Invincible. Like and again, he's completely right, and he's showing there are good examples of this, but I just think again, Invincible takes it to a new level. It's as realistic as you can get, and The Boys is a second.
They always miss the point. Why would something so significant be resolved too easily, casually, or dragged too long? It stops making sense.
And they dive into the mental aspect too of it, where we're seeing what's going on with Mark right now. I'm not going to spoil Invincible for you, but at the end of season 3, Mark is kind of like going through a little bit of a mental crisis with everything that he's been through. The Boys would just be like, oh, he's gone crazy and just lasering everybody. You know what I mean?
It's due to what demographic it's aimed at or just how long it can carry the overall plot. Invincible shows that superheroes Well, most of them are humans, and those who aren't has the complexity of one. We are shown that when superheroes fight, they just can't save everyone, or sometimes there's nothing to save. There's always collateral damage, and there's no avoiding it.
And they take the whole aspect of the Viltrumites kind of not really thinking anything of people. They look at them like bugs. And in the grand scheme of things, when you're comparing these superheroes to us, like that's probably how we would be viewed, somewhere like kind of like Homelander does.
Are fragile and weak, and anyone who surpasses that weakness and becomes something more can become humanity's biggest threat or ally. The show tackles how unchecked power can lead to uncontrolled devastation. As I said before, the superheroes come out of two, either to poke fun at superhero tropes or try to ground them into reality. And Invincible does this well, like the idea of the no-kill rule, a concept held by nearly every superhero out there that they shouldn't kill no matter what. Invincible
and you have Nolan.
tackles this and tells you if you are given this power and you're pushed to your absolute limit, you as a normal realistic human being, can you really obey that rule? And
yeah, and it dives into what's right, what's wrong. You have Mark and Oliver's ideology kind of clashing, even if you want to compare it like to Oliver and Nolan versus Mark on like what the right thing to do is. You have a bad guy here, do I kill him? And then Mark thinking that it's not right to kill anybody. Like, it's fascinating, man. These conversations would take place.
Don't actually kill anyone or not hold back. An ideology like this is what Invincible fights with, and it's a lesson he had to learn the hard way when things started getting too intense for him, with villains showing up left and right to challenge him, even if they have to hurt people closest to him. And when he underestimates them, he always gets a black eye and some missing teeth to remember them by. The show also tackles being a superhero and trying to live a normal life. Just how can you handle the two lives?
Yeah, that's true too. They even did the girlfriend thing the best, because Invincible's had a couple girlfriends over the show, and obviously it's not going to work out. They're too different, and now they're playing with the idea. And I'm sorry, I want spoiler alert. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. How he ended up getting with Eve, and then like the issues with that, Eve coming in, getting completely bodied, and then what he had to go through with all of that. Like, they touched on pretty well everything that there is so far.
You've been drilled in the value of life, which makes you as a superhero want to save people, but also you want a normal life as well, surrounded by people you care about, but can't because it's difficult. Invincible has to be a boyfriend, a son, a brother, a student, a superhero, and a soldier. And there's also a freaking genocidal maniac species planning to take over the earth, and all this responsibility is on Invincible's shoulder.
And they dive into the mental aspect and everything that he goes through perfectly. And it's like a slow burn too, because we're in like, at the time of recording this video, depending when you're watching it, season 3 ended. Season 4, I don't know when season 4 is releasing, but we're between season 3 and 4, and I can already like see the direction that Mark's headed.
The Invincible show and Invincible as a superhero is different and realistic, at least to me. Although there's plenty it's avoiding to tackle and it can't help but lean further into the silliness of superheroes at times, it actually lives up to its reputation. Invincible, although that has been beaten to death as a meme, and it makes sense. Like, why would you name yourself Invincible and still get your ass beat every time?
I don't know. He survives every fight, so I guess he could say he's invincible a little bit.
One of the biggest interesting aspects of Invincible, and also his strongest suit, is the characters, as even though they are animated, you can still understand the emotional weight in everything. The show delves into grounded aspects of every human lives and puts that in the superhero system. Characters like Debbie, who has to live with the fact that her husband, who she loved for years, ended up lying.
Oh yeah, that's an entirely new thing. Plus we have sorry, why am I having a blank on that guy's name? Oh my god, why am I having a blank on that guy's name? The guy Aaron Paul played. The guy who watched his family die when Nolan was blasting Mark through things, then he wanted revenge. They touch on everything.
To her and becoming a genocidal maniac. That guilt she carries throughout the series is real. Mark having to, despite his father's rampage, still be a superhero, at the same time suffer through PTSD, and even so, it doesn't end there. He has to deal with keeping his family safe, being a moral compass for his brother, save the world for intergalactic threat, and had PTSD again just fighting one of them. All this after having the world turned upside down from different versions of himself, all because he didn't make sure he did what he had to do.
They actually touch on the multiverse too, if we want to talk about the different versions of Invincible. Like I said, man, this show has everything.
And the world paid the price. Or a character like Cecil, who had a scuffle with Invincible because he used every resource he could to keep the planet safe.
Now, this is the only touch on it that I don't think that they did as well as the boys. Like, you know, just like kind of somebody working for the government watching over them. I think that the boys is the most realistic to what would actually happen. But Invincible's take on it is very good as well. They would have these sound machines built into them, but the superheroes end up figuring out they're super, and there's nothing that the humans can do to really, you know, stop them. But another thing that would happen is the government would definitely end up keeping Conquest's body just to study it. That's something we would do, when in reality we should eradicate everything that is existing about him. So both of them are good takes, but I think that's really the only thing that The Boys does better than Invincible.
Even if he has to work with villains, even if it contradicts what it means to be a superhero. All this led to a conflict between the two, and that's where the show gives the audience two sides. No one is right and no one is entirely wrong. I think the character with the best development in this series is everyone's favorite, Nolan Grayson. Having to use tough love to get his son to see his way, the way of the Viltrumite, even if he had to be brutal about it. And the show feeds you that. But we are also aware that this is not what he wants, and throughout season 2 and 3, we see glimpses of how he wants to change or has changed for the better.
Yeah, and I'm interested to see how, and something that I really can't wait for out of everything from Invincible is, and I would imagine this is going to happen, okay? Because again, I've been avoiding spoilers like crazy. This is completely a prediction. I would imagine that Nolan's going to come back because we had that whole thing with I Think I Miss My Wife. He's going to come back, and then I'm interested to see how the first conversation goes with Debbie. She's probably going to smack him, but then do they get back together? I don't know. I would imagine that Mark forgives him.
I don't want to talk much on this video because I know editing that will be hell, but I think I've been able to lay down my thoughts with so little. I'm not saying that most superhero mediums don't tackle realistic concepts in superheroes. I'm saying they always lean on one aspect, not the complexity of it, or sometimes take things a bit too off the rail at times, or it's just used in a few instances and then abandoned. But Invincible uses that as the entire theme of the show. He's invincible not because he's indestructible or something. I mean, it's obvious, but because despite all that, he tries to get back up and fight. And so
yeah, I never really looked at Invincible that way. I've never even really thought too much about it. Like, I just thought that it was kind of like you can't kill Invincible. He's invincible. I just kind of looked at it, oh, he just picked a name. He's Superman. He kind of picked a name. He's Superman's son.
Does the world itself. But you may not agree with me on this one, and for most of you, I'm speaking total gibberish. Well, I'd like to hear your thoughts in the comments. Do you think Invincible is a good reality take?
I absolutely 100% think Invincible is a good reality, I guess a good take on what superheroes would actually be. Like I said, the only thing that The Boys get right is the potential for them to be even more messed up. But then again, like, Nolan kind of covers that just a little bit. But I'm talking like the social media aspect that would happen, taking over the world with memes, like Homelander had to be taught. That would work. It would all be crazy, and the entirety of Vought would totally happen in real life too. Everything that happened with Compound V, everything that happened with the disease and stuff like that. That's the only thing I think The Boys does better. But in general, Invincible is the most realistic take on a superhero movie, series, or TV show. Guys, please show the creator some love in the pinned comment description down below. And if you want to keep watching some content about Invincible, why don't you check out my review of the previous season 3 right here. I would love to have you guys over there. Thank you so much for being here. Take care, everybody.